I want to remind you to unmute your microphones by pushing the button on the base prior to responding. Alternates, please also state your name if you are attending on behalf of a TAC representative. Jim Bell. Naresh Marchavarapu. Gary Dunmeyer.
Amanda Radigan here on behalf of Gary Dunmeyer.
Jason Kaufman.
Here.
Denise Malone.
Here.
Jamie Brown. Terrence Bailey. John Paul O'Connor. Alex Hansen.
Here.
Jessica Keller.
Here.
Kenny Wilson. Gary Speck.
Andrew Gimbo on behalf of Gary Seibach.
Brian Davis.
Kevin Fisher on behalf of Brian Davis.
Yash Nagel. Aaron Hoffman.
Here.
Joyce Kai. Lorraine Cargill. Thomas Hernandez.
Here.
Roberto Travieso.
Here.
Kim Delaney. Kim Glass Castro. Christopher Marsh. Jonathan Rensvold.
Present.
John Crane. Natalie Crowley.
Christine Francisca for John Crane.
Natalie Crowley.
Here.
Mo Alturk.
Melissa Ackert here for Moel Turk.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Thank you, staff. Are there any modifications to the agenda? Are there any other modifications to the agenda?
Yes, Madam Chair, the following members are requesting TAC permission to participate remotely. Christopher Marsh, Vicky Gatanis, and Joyce Kai. And we would like to add 3D to 2023 Mobility Week presentation to the agenda, please.
Okay, thank you. Are there any objections to these modifications? And TAC members, are there any objections to allowing these members to participate remotely? And for the record, please note that Kim Delaney has joined the meeting as well for attendance records. Okay, seeing no objections, these members are approved to participate remotely. Ruth, can you please note their attendance in the minutes? Okay, that brings us to the minutes. Are there any changes? We have the minutes for July 5th, 2023. Are there any changes to these minutes? If not, can I have a motion to adopt them as presented?
Motion to adopt.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Kevin Fisher, a second by Roberto Travieso. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. All right, motion carries. That brings us to general public comments and public comments on the agenda. Instructions on how to provide public comments are included on the agenda. Staff, have any general comments been received?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Comments from the chair. Does anybody from the I have no comments. Does anybody have any comments? Are there any comments from any TAC members? For members participating remotely, you can also use your raise hand function. All right, seeing none, moving on to the TAC liaison report. Nathan, would you please be able to provide an update?
Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your August recess, and we're excited to kick off the home run stretch of our year. So a handful of updates for you. Very excited to welcome a new member of our team, our public involvement specialist, Sienna Atkin, who's sitting just to my left. Very excited to have her join the team. She'll be working a lot with us on our public outreach. So we're excited to have a new member of our team. Also want to offer a couple of highlights. So Parking Day is upcoming September 15th. We're going to have an event, Northwood Road here in West Palm Beach. You can learn more about that at myparkingday.org. We also have a walk and roll to school day upcoming on October 4th. Very exciting opportunity to help our kids get safely to school and raise awareness of getting safely to school, and certainly something that I'm passionate about as a father, and I'm sure plenty of you are as well. Couple of other updates. Mobility Week, you just heard we added an item for a formal presentation on that. That's upcoming October 27th to November 4th. You'll hear more details in the presentation towards the end of this meeting. TPA Mobility Week bicycle ride we're going to host on October 28th. So that'll be part of TPA's involvement in that activity. So we hope you'll all join us, take a look at the details and come out and take part in that bicycle ride with us. We will also have during this meeting a couple of updates on the Vision 2050 Long Range Transportation Plan. So I'll provide more detailed highlights, but we did want to offer in the liaison report that the transportation survey is available for comment. We've received a pretty good number of folks who have responded to that already. Yesterday, we were just short of 100 responses so far. This is a copy of the statistically significant survey that I'll also highlight. So it's very exciting to start getting some of that feedback. The USDOT Grant Navigator. So this is just a reminder that resource is available through USDOT to find out more information about grant opportunities. So wanted to continue to highlight that. And our next TPA Governing Board meeting is September 21st, 9 a.m. here in person. And there's also a virtual opportunity if you need to participate remotely. All these details will be available in the copy of the liaison report on our website if you go to the meetings page. Thanks.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Also, for the record, there was a couple attendees that walked in. I just want to make sure that their presence is noted. Iramis Cabrera and then Terrence Bailey. Anybody else I miss? Okay, great. Thank you. All right, so moving on, we are at action items. I have item 2A, and at this time, I would like to invite Mr. Andrew Uhler, TPA Deputy Director, to present this item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, everyone. So this first action item for you today is the first amendment to the 2024 to 2028 Transportation Improvement Program. This is the amendment we have. This first amendment is what we have every year around this time, and it's what is known as the roll forward from FDOT, and I'll explain what that is. And then also we had two additional requests for amendment projects that are also included in this roll forward. So one is a tip amendment needed. It's when we add or delete products, which we're doing today. And it's also for cost increases 20% and $2 million. So those are the ones that we have for you today that are either new additions or cost increases. And as a reminder, it only impacts products that are in the amendment. So what is the roll forward? So it happens every year after the close of the prior fiscal year. So that would be fiscal year 2023. There are products in the work program statewide that are also in our TIP that do not get obligated. So those funds for those products are then rolled forward as a state all throughout the state. And that's what the amendment is for you today. So they're rolled forward into fiscal year 2024. Sorry, excuse me, there I should say 2024. This could be due to just maybe it's product delays. It might be product managers still looking to close out a few of the final phases of products. So you'll see very small amounts sometimes for these projects. So a summary for you today about how much is being rolled forward. In total, it is a large sum, $122 million. The bulk of that is actually Palm Tran funds for transit operations and maintenance, $109 million. That isn't listed in the statewide roll forward, but that's what we do. We work with our transit agencies to show those amounts. So that $109 million, $110 million of transit operations and maintenance funds, that's mostly FTA Section 5307 funds. So that goes towards maintenance, bus replacements. It can also go towards operations. The reason why you're seeing such a large number on that transit this year specifically is that Palm Tran was still spending down a lot of their additional money that they were receiving through COVID relief, the American Rescue Plan Act funds. So they were spending down that money first. And so they have leftover Section 5307 funds and 5339 funds that make up the bulk of that $110 million. The rest of them totaling about 8.7 for sys capacity and then going down roughly another $5 million are additional products, over 40 products total, going towards a roll forward to fiscal year 2024. And then outside of the roll forward, 2 other additional requests from FDOT for changes and amendments to the fiscal year 2024. The first one, State Road 700, Connors Highway, out in the Glades community. It's a very long stretch of roadway from Canal Point all the way to 20 Mile Bend. And this is a resurfacing job. And this is increasing the funding amount by roughly $5 million. So going from $20 million to $25.36 million. The funding being used on this project, that increase is due to cost estimate adjustments, but the funding source of that is through National Highway resurfacing funds, so federal funds. Next is a new project. This is Southwest 18th Street in Boca Raton. And this was a local initiatives project that was then, there was not enough funding in the local initiatives program. This was then converted to a transportation alternatives program project. And we were able to find money for this project in a more earlier year. But in doing so, this needs us to start design pretty early. So this is just providing design oversight of $5,000. And since it's adding a phase, and it's the first time we're adding a phase to this project, it's triggering an amendment. So it's just $5,000 in FDOT design oversight. This project is actually going to be broken up between 2 administrative agencies. The first being Boca Raton, shown in red. So most of the product, which is in Boca Raton, is going to be done by Boca Raton for constructing 10-foot shared use pathways. And then when it crosses the railroad, since that's a different property owner, SFRTA is going to be doing that section of the project. So they're really trying to do the timing around the same time for both of those sections. But today the amendment is just adding that $5,000 in design oversight. And then both SFRTA and BOCA are designing those projects. And that's all I have for you. So I can take any questions before you move to action.
Okay. Do any committee members have any comments on this item? Okay, seeing none. I need a motion then to recommend approval.
Motion to recommend adoption of Amendment 1.
Second.
Okay, I don't think we have any other comments. There's no discussion. So hearing no further discussion, I have a motion by Denise. I'm not sure. I didn't catch the second. Was that Kevin? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion carries unanimously. Moving on to item 2B. Motion to recommend approval for Amendment 1 to the fiscal year. I invite at this time, Mr. Brian Rusher, the TPA Director of Multimodal, to present this item.
Good morning, Technical Advisory Committee. Thank you for your time this morning. Brian Rusher, Deputy Director of Multimodal here, Palm Beach Transportation Planning Agency, with the first amendment to the list of priority projects for fiscal year 25 to 29. Really quickly, we'll just dive into it. One of the primary focuses of our mission here at the TPA is to, in fact, prioritize projects as part of the transportation system funding. The list of priority projects is our means of how we direct funds, especially state and federal funds, into the system. It's an important part of the transportation improvement plan development process. Projects start, if you look at the screen on the left side, in project development, where regionally significant projects are taken from the long-range transportation plan. They go through a conceptual development process, and if they're merited, they move forward into the list of priority projects. This list of priority projects contains 3 funding programs that are broken down distinctly by type: transportation alternatives, state road modifications, and local initiatives. There are 2 additional phases to the TIP development process, but the focus of today is on the list of priority projects. The 2 extra phases are the draft tentative work program, typically comes out in October, and the adoption of the transportation improvement program happens at the end of the fiscal year. We have two proposed categories of amendments. So the first is a project being re-added to the list of priority projects. It's a very exciting project, which is on US 1 in north of North Lake Boulevard, and two Sun Trail projects. Now, I'm going to flip back on the screen just to bring home a point about the Sun Trail projects. You are going to receive an in-depth presentation on the shared use non-motorized transportation system funds, also known as Sun Trail. These projects are required to be prioritized from the TPA, but they do not receive the same funding as these funding pots in state road modifications and transportation alternatives. The TPA is required to receive those projects, rank them, but they do not receive the same state and federal funds. That's a separate pot of money that goes into those projects. So diving into the first project, which will be reinstated into the LOPP through this amendment, is the re-inclusion of project 17F. This is from approximately North Lake Boulevard to the Parker Bridge on US 1 and generally North Palm Beach. It is a 6-to-4 lane repurposing project with an FDOT approval concept. So this has already gone through the district and the central office approval process. It was approved in November of 2022. And what's exciting about this project is that the TPA, with the support of our consultant team and the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, have identified a number of complementary land use development patterns, which will enhance this project on the private side, not just in the public right of way. Generally speaking, the typical section consists of a 12-foot wide shared use path on either edge of the roadway, a conventional 5-foot bike lane, and then 2 travel lanes in each direction with a median swale and additional landscaping on the edge of the roadway as well. The first of the 2 Sun Trail projects is a request from the town of Jupiter, approximately from the US 1 bridge that is currently under construction to about Indian Town Road. This is simply for a feasibility study. It's hard to see on the screen, but just generally speaking, there are a number of trails that already exist in this area in the approximate vicinity of Burnt Reynolds Park, in Harborside, and then with the US 1 bridge reconstruction project. The town has requested a feasibility study, which looks at connecting these complex areas and ensuring that a Sun Trail connection gets you from that US 1 project south to Harborside to an existing Sun Trail section. The second project that we are looking at in the Sun Trail program for prioritization is at in the town of Boca Raton, over the Boca Raton Inlet. There is a very narrow bridge over the existing canal, or excuse me, the existing inlet, and the city of Boca Raton has requested $3 million for both feasibility and design of a bridge, which would provide a Sun Trail connection, being a 12-foot wide non-motorized path over the bridge or over the inlet, and then coinciding that with that work with the FDOT work program, which has bridge rehabilitation work programmed from fiscal year 24 to 28. So I'm intended to be brief. These projects are fairly straightforward. And with that, I'm seeking a motion to adopt amendment number 1 to the fiscal year 25 list of priority projects. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Staff, are there any public comments on this agenda item?
No, Madam Chair. However, when we're done with this item, can we please have the TAC members approve the modified agenda?
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
My apologies. Would you like that action prior to this action, or you want to just do it after?
We can do that after. I just wanted
Okay.
to state that.
Okay, and I did also want to note that Naresh from Boca joined us as well. Okay, so we're still on 2B. Does any committee, do any committee members have any comments on this item?
I do.
Yes, Jonathan.
It was just more of a question, really. You had mentioned funds in this, and I just wanted to make sure we're clear on where the funding was coming from. Are you removing from other projects to fund this project, or did I hear you correctly when you said this is a completely different pot of money from your?
So if I'm guessing you're speaking to Sun Trail specifically.
Correctly, yeah.
So shared use non-motorized transportation trail program through the Florida Department of Transportation was created. Forgive me for not knowing the exact year, but late 2010s. And that created a recurring amount of funding for state trail projects. Now, those are regionally significant trail projects. Generally speaking, the East Coast Greenway is a regionally significant project. Both of these Sun Trail projects requested by the various municipalities are on the Sun Trail network. Now, Sun Trail has that recurring $25 million a year. Past legislative session, they upped that amount to 50 million recurring with an additional 200 million shot in the arm for that funding program specifically towards Sun Trail. So for that to be for that program to be utilized, you have to be on the Sun Trail network. There are a number of design criteria which FDOT will be going through later today in a presentation. But for you as a municipality to get access to those funds, you have to be on the Sun Trail network, and you also must be in the list of priority projects, which is
Gotcha. I'm not asking for access to the funds. What I'm asking is to make sure that we're not reprioritizing existing projects that are on your multimodal plan for these Sun Trail projects.
so the Sun Trail list is an entirely separate list from the rest of the projects that are currently on the list of priority projects, and the US 1 project was a list of priority projects project before, which had to be removed due to not having all of the approvals in time to be funded. But this project is now ready. It has an approved concept and is ready to be placed back onto the list of priority projects.
Understood. And sorry to beat a dead horse here, but I am from Wellington. Okay, that's a joke. Yeah, that's a joke. Anyway, I say this pretty much every week here, but the concern on our end is the amount of funding that we have for our existing projects that is way less than what is actually needed, given the circumstances of the construction industry and the 5-year outlook from when we actually got the projects approved as to now. None of us could have foreseen those sort of increases in construction cost. So I'm just making sure, again, that we're not taking funds that could be utilized for those projects and reallocating them to somewhere else.
No funding has been reallocated for these projects. So the list of priority projects is basically the indicator for FDOT, what our project prioritization and funding, how that really falls. The reinstatement of 17F does, place that project back onto the list, and it gives FDOT a signal to prioritize funding towards that project. For the other Sun Trail projects, that is funding that exists statewide. It's competitive, more or less similar to a discretionary grant program, but it's operated by the state. So at this point, no funding has been shifted around between projects.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you for answering those questions.
Okay, Alex, I think you had comments. Just for the record, Jamie Brown and John Paul O'Connor have joined us as well.
Questions. The first one is the US 1 at North Lake Lane repurposing project. What is the length of that project? It seems to be very short, but I just want to verify from the boundaries that you mentioned. I didn't know whether you had a rough idea.
I don't have a rough estimate off the top of my head. I know Kim worked on the project, Delaney from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. If she has that number off the top of her, that'd be nice. Thank you.
Sure. So, so hey, Alex, so Kim Delaney for the record, Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. It's a 1.9 mile project from the base of the Parker Bridge to North Lake Boulevard, but that entire section isn't the section that would be adjusted. So it's 1.9 miles, but within the 1.9 miles, it's a 0.9 mile section from Anchorage Drive south to Anchorage Drive north that would actually be reduced from 6 lanes to 4.
Okay.
And then from Anchorage Drive north to the base of the Parker Bridge, it would go to a 5-lane section.
Okay.
So that's the composition, and it was a quick victory project identified in the US 1 multimodal corridor study. So it just took time to get through the process to get to the point where it could be added back into the list of priority projects.
Okay. And then I have a second question, which is kind of, I guess, a procedural question. This vote on this item, are we voting only on the 3 projects that were 3, 4 that were identified, or are we voted on the new priority list? Because the packet that we received included the entire list of priority projects. So I want to clarify what it is that we're voting on as part of this item.
The entire list of priority projects is amended as a part of this, so you should take it as a vote on the entire list of priority projects. But the only changes to the list of priority projects through this amendment are the 3 projects referenced in the package. So it is the whole of the project, and I believe I understand why you're asking this question.
Yeah.
It
You
is.
you know
this.
where I'm going.
The entire list of priority projects is amended as part of this, but you are in fact voting on the entire LOPP.
Thank you.
All right, any other members have any cards up? Staff, are there any remote members who have their hand up? No.
No, Madam Chair.
Okay. So seeing no further comments, can I get a motion, please, for this item? Right.
Make a motion to approve.
Second.
Okay, we had a motion by Kim Delaney initially. Kenny, was that, or Aaron, was that your second? Are you? Okay, so you're the second? Okay. All right, motion by Kim Delaney, second by Aaron Hoffman, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Oh, sorry, okay, go ahead, Alex.
I just want to indicate that I'm going to be voting no, because since we are voting on the entire list of priority projects, that includes State Road 7 sections that the city of West Palm Beach opposes. So that is the reason for my vote of no in this item.
Okay, thank you. Motion carries with the one
Oh,
dissent.
I'm
from-
sorry.
Yeah.
I also had to, I have to
Oh,
vote no.
Sorry,
also. That-
Jessica.
No.
Okay. Okay, so staff, you got that? Okay, so motion carries. So now I'm going to go back because we need to make a motion to formally amend the agenda to add item 3D, which is the presentation by TOT's Mobility Week.
Yes.
All in favor of modifying the agenda? Okay.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Sorry about that, staff. All right, so that concludes our action items. So now we are moving on. We have quite a few informational items. So first we have the review of Amendment 2 of the TPA's 2045 Long Range Transportation Cost Feasible Plan. At this time, I'd like to invite Nathan George, the LRTP coordinator, to present this item.
Thank you, Madam Vice Chair. And hello, everybody again, here today to talk about the 2045 LRTP. How many of you are fans of accounting? I'm not, but this is effectively the exercise we're here to talk about today. The established 2045 plan needs to be reconciled. We need to go through this process occasionally just to make sure we're in line with everything. So I'm going to walk you through the document that we have produced, and it's been posted for public review as well. So that's part of this process. So this is 2045 amendment number 2. We've had several administrative or amendment processes previously, but it's been a little while. January 7th of 2022 was the last time this document was updated. So we have a lot of changes in our finances that have to be captured in this update. So just to highlight 3 of the key areas that we're working on incorporating consistency. One is new revenues. We've had a handful of new revenue sources. I highlighted 2, CAR-U and a handful of discretionary grants. Those are really exciting incorporations into this plan. So it really captures those additional revenues that are coming into our region. We also need to make sure we're consistent with our updated TIP. So this update really gets us in line with the TIP that you've adopted now several times, in fact. And then we also have the SIS cost feasible plan. There are a number of updates that this document will incorporate as we make adoption of Amendment 2. So to give you an idea of what you see in front of you, there's a lot of highlight. It's a very colorful document now, these tables, but the majority of these updates are what we call administrative modifications. So I'll walk you through the difference between what's an amendment and what's an administrative modification. So FDOT outlines these thresholds, and an amendment is a significant change. So it's a significant scope. You've added length to a project. You've been put in a new phase, things like that. Advancing a project schedule. So we look at everything in the LRTP as 5-year bands. So if we take money from an outer year and pull it into an earlier year, that's considered an amendment. Or if a cost increases as 50% and $50 million, so it has to be a pretty large, sizable project to trigger an amendment. Both of those cost thresholds need to be triggered for it to be an amendment. Otherwise, it falls into the category of administrative modification. And the key here is that amendments require that public notice and opportunity to provide input. Where an administrative modification are more minor changes. So these are design scope is generally consistent. Our schedule has not substantially altered from what is shown in the LRTP. And cost changes do not trigger those two thresholds that I identified. So those don't require as high of a threshold. TPA can make those changes with less oversight, if you will. We're not required to go through the public review and input process. So to give you an idea of what that means, actually in the cost feasible plan, and this shows you the two key highlights in the plan, the majority of these changes are administrative modifications. They don't trigger those thresholds for an amendment. So all of those yellows that you see on the screen, those are administrative modifications that don't require a higher level of scrutiny. The amendments are like this example from Turnpike on our northern border. So there was an added phase to add some design funds. So FDOT can begin design for the termination on the northern part of the county, which is a very small additional phase to existing Turnpike projects that run through the entirety of the county. Another aspect of an amendment that is critical is that we have to redemonstrate financial constraint. So the LRTP has to balance revenues with expenses. So this captures those added revenues. It captures additional funding that's been allocated either through federal sources or the state, and ensures that all of the project costs balance out with those revenue sources. So that's what this table 23 demonstrates. And again, this is an informational item. We're not here to take any formal action. We will receive your comments. This will be brought back next month at the conclusion of a 45-day review period for public review and comments. So that was posted September 1st, the full document on the website, and folks can provide comment through the website. We also are bringing this informational item to our committee's board this month. So that's our first review of this amendment, and then October 19th is planned to bring this item back for formal adoption by the board at the October 19th meeting. And that concludes the presentation. So I'll be happy to answer any questions or take comments.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Staff, are there any public comments on this?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, are there any committee member comments on this particular item? Ms. Alex?
Question, comment. I've been trying to obtain, so the city of West Palm Beach is in the process of updating our comprehensive plan right now. This is as part of the evaluation and appraisal review process, or EAR, which is state mandated. We have been trying to come up with the map indicating what the the 2045 roadway network is proposed 2045 roadway network should be. This includes, again, city roads, but also state and county roads within our boundaries. Has been kind of a struggle. I don't believe that the 2045 long range transportation plan has a map, a cost feasible map indicating this is the number of lanes that is, if everything goes according to plan, the entire county would have for each roadway segment. That existed for the 2040 plan and for preceding plans, but I haven't been able to get that. For example, I see that as part of this, we are kind of indicating, well, these are some of the changes that are going to be happening for some of the different periods. I see this is the list of priority projects and some changes, but doesn't seem like we have, okay, once we are done, this is what we project for the 2045 roadway network to be in the entirety of Palm Beach County. So I guess it's a question or a comment. Again, it doesn't seem to exist. Wouldn't it be a good idea to have something like that? Because we keep making modifications, but in the end, we do not know what that overall picture would look like once we are done with all these changes that we still are proposing to the 2045 long range transportation plan. So I guess it's a suggestion, a comment that is something that I think we should have so that we can take a look, okay, if everything happens according to plan, this is the transportation network that we're going to have, both from the roadways, the ultimate roadway laneage, as well as the other modes, but that doesn't appear to exist. So I just kind of suggestion, comment on that.
if I may.
Staff, do you have a response to that?
So as I alluded to at the beginning of my remarks, this is a financial plan. So what you're referring to is the model, the transportation model for the region, and how that's fed into the plan itself, which is, background information that informs selection of projects. Something that we'll be discussing when we get into the 2050. What are the results of our process as we put projects into the 2050 plan? I think it would be best if we take the conversation about the background information that fed into the selection of projects in 2045 and have a discussion about that offline, see if we can answer your questions, if that's okay.
Yes, but there's also a bigger picture to my comment, again, for everybody to be aware of what the ultimate transportation network for 2045 would be. So yes, there's some details that we can discuss on the sidelines, but also I do think that, again, we keep making changes, and at time it would be good to have a good idea, visual idea of this is the ultimate transportation network that we envision to have, or that we are approving as we are approving different projects and or modifications to the 2045 long-range transportation plan. And at the same comment kind of goes into the development of the 2050 plan. It's not just a modeling exercise, but it's also, hey, this is what we envision the ultimate transportation network to be.
Hi, Andrew Euler again. Alex, we have your email that you sent to us, and I apologize for not getting back to you yet about that. But it does exist. As Nathan mentioned, we have the network that is loaded with the 2045 cost feasible network. So we can get that to you. We'll just gotta make sure we send you that email. But it's a good point that you're making.
All right, thank you, Alex. Are there any other comments on this informational item? All right, Nathan, I think you're Khursheed? Okay.
Khursheed Mahideen with Palm Beach County Planning. Can somebody clarify what is exactly the change? So it is just the cost for SIS 3393 project, Southern Boulevard from Biggs Forest to Royal Palm.
Staff?
Okay, so we're looking at a highlight for an additional FM phase and PD&E cost in the 2031 to 2035 of $6 million, which I think was just moved. So it's an administrative modification highlighting an update to add an FM number or change the FM number and moving the cost effectively. Actually, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the wrong line. It's just a change to the FM number.
Okay. All right, Khursheed, you got your answer? Okay, sounds good. So we're going to move on to the next informational item, which is also Nathan. This is the TPA 2050 vision plan. So speaking of the 2050, this is the update, call for projects.
All right, and I'll just give a moment for the presentation to come up. So we're talking about what our vision is, what are those future plans for our facilities, to Alex's point. And I think, your point is right on. We want to see what this region from a transportation perspective should look like in that future. So hopefully I do a better job of documenting all of that in the 2050 plan. So it's very transparent. So we're here today just to give you a quick update on the development of the 2050 plan and talk about the call for projects. This is my technical audience, so it's a really exciting topic for you all, I'm sure. So just a reminder on our timeline where we went through our goal setting exercise. I'll highlight for you how we're going to close that process out. We're at the call for projects phase. So we're here to talk about what are our needs in this region and how are we going to identify that next round of projects that we're going to fund. So first updates, want to highlight for you some exciting public engagement opportunities. So this is aside from the call for projects side of things, trying to get folks engaged and help them inform this process. So first, we wanted to share that we have completed the statistically significant survey. TPA staff is going to be briefed on that this month, September. The process of actually calling and getting all of that information that informed the survey was completed early in August. So we're looking forward to hearing what the results are from our consultant team. Copy of the survey, as I mentioned earlier in the liaison report, we've created a complete copy of that and posted on the website so folks can get in and share additional input. It will not be part of the statistically significant observations we're taking, but it gives us a lot of additional data so we can see, what's maybe another audience say. Do we see any differences in the non-statistically significant results and what we're getting from what's hosted on our website? So that's a pretty exciting opportunity. We're also working on a handful of other engagement tools that hopefully we'll be rolling out over the next week or so. Ideally, potentially a map that would allow folks to share their comments about needs, sort of a tandem process to what you will all be doing with the call for projects, and then hopefully some other opportunities to engage. So we want to highlight also for everybody a save the date. We went through that goals exercise. We've received some really great comments. We want to provide a more holistic opportunity for the board, committee members of the public to inform that process before we adopt our goals. We're going to host 2 workshops in November, shortly before the holidays. November 14th, we'll hold a virtual 1-hour engagement opportunity from 3:30 to 4:30. And then we'll host an in-person 2-hour workshop from 9 to 11 on November 16th. Be an opportunity for everybody to engage with some of the feedback we're getting, potentially some things we're hearing on the call for projects, definitely what we're hearing in some of these public engagement opportunities. So that those will be a great opportunity to see some of those outcomes, but also to have a last discussion about goals and objectives before we adopt, because that's going to inform processes as we go through early next year as we screen projects. The call for projects, what we're all excited to talk about today. So this is your opportunity to share with us your ideas. What do you want to get funded in the 2050 plan? I have outlined a 4-step process to guide anybody who's considering submitting a project. Number 1 highlight here, this call for projects is open to agencies and municipalities. This isn't volunteer your ideas like I hope to do a public comment map that would help identify needs and ideas. This is actual project ideas. What do you want to get funded? So anybody who is eligible to receive federal dollars is eligible to submit their projects. We ask for a lot of information, like your contact information, so we can circle back. And then there are a lot of additional information that's typical of project submittals. It's a web-based survey. We use survey 123. It should be fairly easy to complete. It asks for basic project details. Where are you working? What are your project limits? What is it that you're trying to do? Your scope? What's the need that you identified? So very basic project information. Most of it should already be included in your financial plans, like a CIP. We are asking for submittals to be completed by Friday, November 3rd. So for anybody who's interested in this, submitting through this process, we're asking that you review the application, start to assemble your details, contact us if you have any questions, and then submit your projects. For more details, you can go to our website. If you go to the call for projects, search call for projects, it should take you right there. But the LRTP page will also point you to this, to where all this information is housed. On that website, you're going to see information about what we're looking for, some additional information about how we're going to process the applications, a link to go look at the application and start assembling your details. I will be reaching out to our larger municipalities. I want to reach out to everybody, but certainly everybody that we expect to respond, to have a one-on-one dialogue. So make sure you are engaging, but I will be reaching out as well. You can schedule a meeting with me using Calendly. So there's a link there on the page that you can go and set a time and meet with me whenever I'm available. So feel free to reach out. You can also call or email. But certainly want you to afford yourself of those opportunities to talk to us, ask questions, and if you have any questions, please do let us know. The idea here is that we want to get as many submittals as we possibly can. We want to have a really robust call, a lot of needs identified, and then we'll go through that screening process and figure out what we can get funded. So That concludes my remarks. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you, Nathan. Staff, are there any public comments on this item?
No, Madam Chair, apologies. We recorded a motion, but we also need a second to adopt the modified agenda. Sorry.
Thank you. Second by Kim, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, third time's a charm. Okay, so going back to this item, so there's no public comments. Do any committee members have comments on this informational item? Are there any virtual comments? Does anybody have their hand raised? No? Okay. I just have a couple questions, Nathan, because I'm a little confused, I guess, on the 2050 vision plan, because I wasn't under the impression that these are funded projects. It was my understanding that the 2050 is a long-range vision plan that collects the data to establish the county's collective goals. So I'm just trying to understand and better understand the call for proposals and how that integrates with the actual plan itself, because you kept mentioning federal dollars and how this gets your projects funded, but I was never under the impression that, the 2050 is a, sure bet for federal funding. It just establishes a vision. Could you clarify that, please?
Yes, so it's not a call for proposals. It is a call for projects. So this is the part of the process that informs our needs plan. So identification of what our regional needs are, so we can establish what are those highest priorities. The cost feasible plan that we just talked about in the previous item is here are the projects that we, based on the revenues that we have available, can reasonably expect to fund over the 25-year time frame of this plan. The 2045 plan already outlines our expected investments in the region through 2045. So we're, going through a reconciliation process of how changes are influencing that existing established funding program, and then adding on to the end, what are the, kind of like we talk about every time we talk about the tip, what's our next set of funded projects? So they are committed funded projects that go into the cost feasible plan and the LRTP. In addition to that, one opportunity that I want to, I've been talking about it internally with staff that I want us to take advantage of in the 2050 plan is the opportunity to put projects in that are outside of the cost feasible plan, but they are the next opportunities that we would fund if we had additional revenues. And so that's another opportunity to identify what's the low hanging fruit or the next best opportunities that we need to get funded, but we just don't have enough money to get those funded. Those are called illustrative projects by the Fed. So the idea is that as we identify those opportunities, one example I'll give you is the Boca Raton station was it was funded through a discretionary grant. So it's not something that TPA would have enough funding to put into our LRTP to build that, but it's certainly something we could say if money falls from heaven, what would we fund? That's the kind of things that we can put into our plan that are, those local priorities that if federal dollars pour in from another future transportation bill, those are opportunities we can highlight in this plan that, it's just another opportunity if we see the money come in.
Understood. So you really have kind of three buckets gearing up in the 2050, where you have the immediate cost feasible, which are the funded. Then you have this future, this other category, which is sort of next in line. And then you do have a broader category, which is not funded. It's just the full vision, right?
Correct. And I'd say it's, I would call it a stratified vision. It's like there are going to be different tiers. You're going to have projects that are closer to implementation. So projects that are pretty close and they may have pretty good public support and all your typical things you need to get it funded. Then below that, you'll have some projects that maybe have a little bit more work to do right away to acquire, utilities to coordinate, things that are, just make it a little bit farther out. And then there'll be ideas that require additional planning. And that's one of my hopes, personally, is that I'd like to see a lot of projects identified that establish more of a planning initiative so we can, TPA can serve as in a facilitation role to get those projects from ideas to where they're more program ready.
That's great. That's helpful. Thank you. I have one last question, if the board allows me to. I'm curious about the scoring criteria about the call for projects. Is there any, is that established or has there been criteria previously established through the 2045?
I would say I don't have the background to speak to the 2045 plan. I have been working on outlining a framework for our scoring process for 2050. What we're asking for in the call for projects is an optional summary of how each project would support our 5 goal areas: safe, efficient, connected, multimodal, and resilient. So that's, an early teaser to how we might potentially score. That's certainly going to be a process that we are discussing, I'd say early next year, how we're going to score each of the projects. But I would say stay tuned because we're going to have a very robust discussion about how we score projects. The call for projects is one part of a multi-part needs analysis. So those projects also have to be balanced with regional needs. If we're seeing a lot of call for project submittals and we see a lot of needs and there's not a pairing of, the overlap of those two, that could potentially be problematic as well. So it's certainly an opportunity that as we go through our needs analysis, if we see some needs in your communities, we might share that information back with you, but hopefully we'll see a good pairing of you understand the transportation needs in your communities and you'll submit projects that are well aligned from those goal area perspectives and also just from a transportation perspective as well.
Okay, thank you very
Thanks.
much. Any other comments?
Madam.
Yes, Alex.
Yeah, kind of a follow-up on Natalie's initial question. So this November 9 deadline call for projects would apply to which one of these 3 buckets that you mentioned? Is it the first bucket, the ones with projects that are for the next 5 years that have some funding, because you referenced CIP, and which is typically a 5-year document, at least for most cities, or are we talking again projects, let's say, that are just an idea? Hey, we have this conceptual idea of doing a project. We may not have some of the right of way. There's no plans. It needs to be developed a lot more. Would that be part of this November 9th call for projects deadline, or is that something that we should discuss, I guess, later in the development of the 2050?
Okay.
Or does it belong in the 2050, a project like that?
One minor clarification, just to make sure we get the date right, November 3rd. It's the
November
first
3rd,
first
sorry,
Friday
sorry.
in November. I tried to frame the call for projects so it can capture everything. So it could be like a napkin sketch and somebody had an idea. That's not something that's going to work its way into the LRTP, just in, full transparency. Odds are pretty good. If you've done absolutely no work, you haven't reached out to the public, you haven't put anything in a planning document, it can't make its way into an LRTP. But the idea is that it should be able to capture everything from that basic idea that's not really something we can incorporate from a funding perspective, but we can capture from an ideas perspective all the way to things that are, you've got a shovel ready project that you're ready to get funded. You will have to consider the potential funding cycle that those projects would be completed on. So we're not talking about, in most cases, I would say, not talking about adding near-term funding. So if you're thinking about a project, it should be envisioned in that longer, we're talking about 25 years into the future, maybe something that can fall a little bit nearer than that outer 5-year band, but it's certainly something that we're talking about projects that are going to fall farther out in that cycle. So these are big ideas, hopefully, projects that demonstrate a high level of benefit to the region. And certainly they're not going to be near-term CIP type investments. I was referring to that more so from like the information that would be presented in a CIP item, like your project description limits and basic financial information, cost estimates, that sort of thing. Thanks.
Great. Okay. We
I
will.
had a comment as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah,
Didn't see
kind
it.
of in horizontal here, so
Yeah,
it's hard to see. Yeah.
Go ahead.
No worries. Thanks for addressing me. Question for you. This what you're looking for long range, correct? Like, over 5 years. Just want to make sure we're high level, sort of, it's in our comp plan, sort of deal. Projects.
Correct. Yeah,
Not-
these would be in your comp plan.
Okay, nothing within the next 5 years that would, again, affect any of the funding that's already going.
Oh, yeah,
on.
certainly.
Yeah.
The first 5 years of the
Mhm.
LRTP are the tip. So we can't insert new projects into the tip. So, clearly that's that process that we talk about here at TPA when we talk about amending the tip and adding projects to it. So it's projects that occur farther out, and whether the projects can be shuffled in the current mix outside of that 5-year band is really a question of priorities and how firmly we hold to the current 2045 plan, which I'd say, at least initially, those are considered fixed projects. So we're talking about projects that occur farther out, certainly beyond where we have currently committed. So like you might have projects that may have early planning or engineering type costs that have been starting to work their way into the tip, or they're envisioned to work their way into the tip in the near future. Those projects absolutely would be considered immovable. And then it's, there could be some shuffling that occurs, but I'd say assume that you're talking about that 20 to 25-year time band is a reasonable expectation.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, any other comments? If not, we will move on to informational item 3C, which is FDOT's shared use non-motorized Sun Trail program. At this time, I'd like to invite Wibbit Hay who is the DOT District 4 Multimodal Coordinator, to present this item.
I'm sorry. My name is Wibbit Hay. I'm the Office of Modal Development here in District 4 at the Florida Department of Transportation. And I'm here to give you a brief presentation of the Sun Trail requirements and what is necessary for you to apply, and the different requirements and the funding source. Okay, here we go. So the Sun Trail was created with the legislation session, and it's on the screen right there. It started off at $25 million, which was recently increased with the last legislature session to 50 million. And as Brian mentioned earlier, we have an influx of like a $2 million one-time amount that is going to be utilized for funding for the different projects. My goal as the Sun Trail coordinator is to get as much as that $2 million and the $50 million here in our district. We currently have a lot of different projects in different phases in the Northern County. And my goal this year is to work with Palm Beach and Broward, for that matter, to get as much of that money into our system. Did I just break it? Thanks. I think I broke it.
Okay. It's a black screen.
Thanks. All right. Now, that $50 million is divided into 3 different sections. So we don't all get that $50 million. So we have 3 sections, each of them getting a third. There's 2 regional trail that gets 1/3 of that funding, and the other third is divided in individual trails. That's where we fit in. So we get a third of that $50 million as an influx into our system. So these are some of the requirements before you're thinking about applying. And I'll let you go ahead and read that. I don't want to get too much into details. That information is available. But what I wanted to point out is that it needs to be within the local jurisdiction, and it needs to also be on the priority list of the MPO or in your case, the TPA. It needs to also be safe, and it also needs to meet the goal and the purpose of the organization who's applying for that project. Now, this is one I think is the most important slide in this presentation. What do you need to do? the first thing, it needs to be on the East Coast Greenway trail system. And what that is that they wanted to make sure that we can utilize the trail from Maine continuously all the way to Key West. So it needs to be on that system. It needs to be on the priority list of the MPO, as I mentioned, and it needs to be on the plan of any entity that's applying for that funding. Now, I've always been asked the question, can it cover every single aspect? There's 4 aspects, if you look at the website, that the Sun Trail funding will cover. The first phase is feasibility / PD&E. We'll cover that 100% to make sure that the project is feasible and then it could meet the requirements. The second phase you'll probably see on the website is right-of-way costs. Unfortunately, we have not been doing a lot of right-of-way costs just because it can become very costly. So we shy away from doing that. We focus on possibly utilizing the existing right-of-way. And if there's something, if an entity would like it on a specific right-of-way, then they would have to chip in the cost for that, unfortunately. We will cover design 100% and also construction 100%. If you look at the description, you'll also say that, and I am sorry, I have a little bit of bronchitis, so I'm having a really hard time talking. But it will say that, the entity needs to chip in some portions of fund, but the reality is in the past, we have covered everything 100%. These are some of the areas that we would like to make sure it meets, is enhancing safety for bicycle and pedestrian. Project is recognized as having a regional and state importance, that it's construction ready, that it has a high level of documentation supporting it. Why is it important to your entity? And that it also enhance the environment and enhance economic opportunities within your area. These are some of the areas that we will not cover. For example, we will never cover bicycle racks. We will not cover furnitures. We will never cover landscape. Those are things that the entity would have to chip in on their own. We only cover those 3 areas that I mentioned earlier, which is a feasibility / PD&E. We also cover the design and construction 100%. Okay, so I wanted to give you a look at what is in the Palm Beach area. If you look onto the right, you'll see all the existing trail, the ones that are programmed or partially programmed, and the unfunded gap. If you look on the map of Palm Beach, you realize that area, we have a lot to do in the Palm Beach area. And as I said, it's free money as long as you meet those requirements. So that's kind of the reason why I'm here today, just to give you an overview. I know I've had a couple of conversations with a couple of individuals here in Palm Beach, and they will be putting an application. And thank you for approving that amendment to actually include those 2 individuals in the priority list, because that's one of the important aspects. So once you make a determination that you would like to put in the application, if you talk to the TPA and they're on board, you would go to the GAP system to complete your application. I am available as a resource, and if I need to get additional assistance for you, I can do that also. We would like you to also go to the Sun Trail Network if you have additional questions, but you can also reach out to me and I can provide the answers as much as possible. Now, if you're filling out an application, these are some of the information on the screen that you would utilize. You make sure that it's in District 4, the county that it's located in, and then the name of whatever trail you're going to be putting on there. So for example, you put in the Okeechobee pathway or something like that, you would put Okeechobee pathway, you put D4 Palm Beach Okeechobee pathway. This is just like I don't know what I keep doing, but this is just a example of the map. When you're completing the application, you would need to create a good map system so we can see exactly the limits of the project and like the aerial view and possibly a typical section. And this is just to give you the detail, project name, project limit, and of course the map. And that concludes my presentation. My contact information is here, and I'll take any questions you might have.
Yeah, are there any questions for Wibet? Yes, Alex.
One question. So at least in the past, the issue in Palm Beach County, one of the main limitations for the development of the Sun Trail in Palm Beach County is, at least for the north-south segment, there's three routes in Palm Beach County, two that run east-west and one that runs north-south, either along US 1 or a couple blocks from US 1. We're talking about some very urban areas with very limited right-of-way. So that in the past, previous discussions between at least West Palm Beach and I know TPA or MPO and FDOT, one of the issues has become that there's at least there used to be some minimum width standards that the project had to comply with. And at least in the urban sections, which is again, almost entirely of Palm Beach County, it was very difficult to meet that. I mean, in the case here, we're talking, the section is 2 blocks from here, I think, where that would go. So do you still have the same parameters, minimum parameters as far as width of the section? And again, I think that is for urban areas, that has been kind of the main limitation towards a additional development of the Sun Trail in Palm Beach County.
Yes, we do still have the same limitations and we still have the same width requirements. But we have done variance in the sense that depending on if there is some constraint, we will drop it from the 12-foot path to possibly 10-foot. And also we will also look at different roads or different areas. So it doesn't have to necessarily stay exactly on the same alignment. As long as it's within that region, we can look at the other location if it meets that requirement a little bit better.
Kim.
Hey, Wibet. I just wanted to add for the benefit of the group. So the Sun Trail Network is a really ambitious network for the state of Florida. And it is a lot easier to put a 12-foot wide trail through the woods than it is through an urban area. So we are at a special challenge, versus other regions of the state. That said, for Palm Beach County, our primary Sun Trail corridor is the East Coast Greenway. So the East Coast Greenway is very aware, Alex, of just what you described, right? When we try to figure out how to thread the trail through Palm Beach County, it's not that hard to do it where you have available right-of-way. So if you think about the section of US 1 from County Line Road to Jonathan Dickinson State Park, lots of right-of-way, 200-foot section, and we've got a 12-foot wide trail, no problem. And really from that point south through Palm Beach County, every other part of it is a challenge. So that said, the East Coast Greenway is also aware of how difficult it is to get a trail segment through a downtown. So they have a system of variances as well. And East Coast Greenway is the foundation that's nationally advocating for the 3,000-mile trail between Calais, Maine, and Key West, which is the corridor, and fitting into the Sun Trail funding program or other funding programs as available. And they have a system of variances as well. So you can get a designated segment if you're as low as 10 feet or a designated connector in, for example, a historic downtown can be down to 5 feet if needed, just so that you can get a segment through with an awareness that ultimately the goal is to have that as a wider segment that can accommodate two-way bike traffic, because that's really the goal. So I just wanted to point that out, because sometimes when you look at Sun Trail in Palm Beach County, it's kind of like that mountain's too high to climb. I'm going to go somewhere else. And that's what's happened in the region. St. Lucie County has had lots of room and has really been competitive in getting its segments into the Sun Trail funding system and then funded. And so at this point, the entire connection through St. Lucie County is funded at either at design,
Feasibility.
design engineering or construction, right? So all of St. Lucie County is connected. Martin County has also prioritized it. Not an easy place to get through either. And Martin County has, found a way to at least get the design part of the project underway. Indian River County, by the way, is done. The East Coast Greenway exists out on the Barrier Island. So Palm Beach County is kind of like the next segment. So I just wanted to throw that out to the group. Not everybody's affected by Sun Trail because it's only on the eastern corridor, but where we're able to find a way at least to get an alignment designated, it makes all the other pieces more competitive for funding. So I just want to throw that out there. So like in West Palm Beach in particular, man, we have some skinny sections and we have like a 5 or 6 foot sidewalk. We can still call that our alignment and ask East Coast Greenway to designate it as a connector. So we get designated on their map with an awareness that ultimately long-term, when roadways are rebuilt, for example, the goal is to get them to 10 or ideally 12 feet in Sun Trail to get the segment, to get the corridor completed through Palm Beach County. I just thought I'd throw that out there.
Great. That's very helpful information, Kim. Thank you. Are there any other committee comments? Kevin?
Thank you for the presentation. Just curious, one of the east-west corridors that's mapped is the State Road 80 corridor. I think it's about a 5-mile segment on the north side of State Road 80, basically west of Royal Palm Beach, heading towards the lake that's been constructed as a multi-purpose path. Did that project receive any Sun Trail funds, or is that an alternate funding source for that?
That's an alternative funding source. That was not a Sun Trail funded.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments from the board out there? Seeing none, staff, are there any public comments at this time on this item?
No, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you very much, Wabette, for your presentation. Very, very helpful, great information.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have one last informational item that was the addition, which is DOT's Mobility Week presentation, which is item 3D.
Unfortunately, you get me again. I'm a woman who've had many hats. Hi again, my name is Ubet Hay. I'm the Mobility Week project manager here in District 4. And I kind of just wanted to give you a brief overview of what Mobility Week is. It's going to be coming up in near future. And I just wanted to see if anyone who's able or willing to partner with FDOT on any events. I know Palm Beach TPA is already in the process of working with us. So and I am assuming that a lot of you are aware, and I think that they just mentioned it here in a presentation. But what is Mobility Week? Mobility Week is a coordinated event by FDOT and partner agency to promote safe, sustainable multimodal transportation choices through events and programs. The real goal is to try and get people out of single occupants vehicle and encourage them to try different multimodal choices. Why is this important to FDOT? It advanced and raised public awareness and objective for Florida residents. So this is a statewide initiative, and it's not just in District 4. It is all around the state of Florida. These are the events that we did in 2022. That you can see on the screen. We did 18 events here in District 4, and we had 16 partners. So in 2020, everyone knows that we had COVID. Because we wanted to continue Mobility Week, during that time, we created this virtual room. where we had presentations, we had events within the mobile virtual room. And we also have resources that people can go and learn about the different, the transit agency or any events that were going on, and also about different areas. And if, for example, if you have a plan that you would like to include in there, we are open to add it into the virtual room. This is just basically where you would find the virtual room. And this is when you get into the virtual room, it's like an entrance area. It's more like it's actually like a room per se, where you would go in and click on different areas. This is just the main hallway. You can go in, expand, look at what's going on in different areas, and you can actually go to the different districts here in Florida, and just see what's going on in those areas. This is our actual D4 room, and as you can see, we have different areas set up. When you get off of the elevator, our past district secretary, Jerry O'Reilly, would be there providing you an introduction as to why it's important to be in our room and just welcome you to the virtual room. If you look, we have multiple different transit agencies. We provide information on these different areas. So if you have anything that you would like to provide to us for us to include in the virtual room, please do so. You can send it to me via email. If it's file is too big, just let me know and I can send you a FTA file and you can send it to me that way and I can get it uploaded into the system. Last year, we did like about 156 people went to our room, it's per se, and they went to different areas to see what was going on in those areas. In the past, we had a challenge called Love to Ride. It was focused more on biking. We are going away, getting away from the Love to Ride this year and replacing it with a new system that's going to cover not only biking, we're also going to provide transit, walking, bicycle, e-scooter, any other mode of transportation except cars. You go in there, you log your information, and you're able to get these really cool prizes. It's, as I said, it's a statewide initiative, so you're competing against other individuals within the state. So the more you log, the better chances you have of winning. Unfortunately, the challenge is being, because it's a new system that is being created just for us, where it's still in the planning phase. As soon as I get some additional information, I'll provide it to the TPA and they can dispense it to the group. These are some of the events that happened here in our district last year. The two top pictures you can see, there is a White Cane event, and we have a lot of picture here with the TPA actually going out and doing a bike ride. And we also have some other events, community events that we attend and provided additional information as to different modes of transportation, trying to help people to think, to understand, or giving them free tickets to certain transit agency for them to allow them to try the different modes. These are just some of the events that happened. We gave away about 2,600 promotional item, which we usually get from central office. It says Mobility Week on there. And if you have any events, you can let me know and I can provide you all these different safety items. In the past, we've had bags, we have spokes light, we have bike related items like wristbands and stuff like that. I'm not 100% sure because they're still finalizing the list of things that we have to give away. We have our next meeting next week, so I'm hoping by that time I should have a complete list and I can provide it to the TPA and they can also provide it to you. Mobility Week this year is from October 27th to November 4th. These are just some of the events that we currently had organized. For example, we have an Express Bus Appreciation that's going to be done in Broward. We have an FDOT Mobility Education. That's an event that is going to be done at District 4, where we're going to invite all different partners from transportation partners to come in and talk about different events or different things that they're planning in their organization, and actually give the staff an opportunity to talk to people that they would never have an opportunity to speak to. We are also reaching out to the transit agency and asking them to provide either free tickets, or if they are free system, to maybe help them promote their transit system and try another mode. And then, of course, we're going to be doing some bike rides, and I know the TPA is planning one here in the near future. If you need some additional information, you can find it at these sites. And of course, you can reach out to me and I can provide you additional information. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any committee comments on this item? Go ahead, Jessica.
Hi there, Jessica Keller, City of West Palm Beach. You have a consultant working for you coordinating this. I've been playing email tag with your consultant, trying to coordinate some events with you. I'm really looking forward to working with you. The City of West Palm Beach has a number of items planned for actually the entire month of October. And also for Mobility Week. I just sent you a follow-up email, actually to your consultant, to try to set up something sooner rather than later so that we can promote for you. So that's really, my interest is in cross promotion. And so if we can connect soon, that would be
We'll talk after.
fantastic. Okay,
Yeah, we'll
thanks.
get something on the calendar because we're trying to finalize our events currently.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Are there any comments in virtual land?
No, Madam
Are there any comments from the public on this agenda item? Okay, thank you very much, Wibet.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our administrative items. Items 4 through D are informational only. There will be no staff presentation unless specifically requested from a board member. So are there any requests at this time for staff to elaborate on any of these items that are before you? Okay, seeing none, that and there's no public, nobody's wishing to speak. Okay, good. All right, so our next TAC meeting is scheduled for October 4th. And so at this point, our committee meeting is adjourned. Thank you.